We'll turn now to page 46. I'll invite everyone to rise as we get ready to pray our Amidah. Adonai Sifatai Tiftach, God, open up my lips. Open up my lips for the prayer that I need to speak now out into the universe around me. Maybe I'll want to use the words of the prayer book, or maybe tonight the words of my heart will be just fine. So we'll start by singing Adonai Sifatai Tiftach together, and then we'll continue our Amidah silently. Whenever you are finished, you may be seated.
One of the privileges of being able to fill in for the cantor when she's not here is I can invite my wife, Michelle, to come sing with me on Valentine's Day and Indian sing. Thought that was going to get groans. We'll end with, at the end of the Amidah, page 62.
Of my heart be
turn now at the end of the Amidah, thank you, Michelle, to a prayer for those that are ill. Every week, as we gather for services, I know when I look out into the congregation, I know how many people there are, friends, family, acquaintances, that are just in need of healing. Healing of the body, healing of the spirit. So we gather as a community to pray for this healing. We'll sing the first part, that's for us, to have strength. And then I have a list of names to read, and I'll also come around and gather names. Actually, Rabbi Alvin, if you could gather the names from people. And so call out the names of the people that you're thinking about so we can all take them into our hearts together and sing in the second half of the blessing. So Misha Beirach, it's 253. Misha Sheila Merowitz, Talia Merowitz, Azita Rafaela, Howard Rosen, Neil Rousseau, Lindy Sobel, Mabuba Soleimani, Yudit Bat Nechama Mordechai, Julie Van Heisen, Helena Wachtel, Mateo Alexander Javier Weinman, Marilyn Weiss, and Howard Zelikow. As I begin my sermon tonight, I want to ask you all a question. Raise your hand if you consider yourself to be a spiritual person. Okay, like there's some iffiness, I'm not quite sure, that's great for what I'm going to speak about. Alyssa wants to know what that even means, fine, okay.
Our Torah portion this week is Yitro, and in it we get insight into what it means for Moses to be a spiritual person. I'm going to explain. Just hold your horses. Don't worry, and I will talk to you about it afterwards. Don't worry. By Exodus 19, the Israelites have marched from Egypt. They have crossed through the Red Sea. They are now in the desert. They are at the foot of Mount Sinai, ready to receive Torah. Moses treks to the top of the mountain, and God begins presenting Moses with a set of instructions, the commandments, which, if followed correctly, will ensure that the Israelites exist as a kingdom of priests, a holy nation. In Exodus 19:9, God tells Moses while he's at the top of the mountain, "I will come to you in a thick cloud, in order that the people may hear when I speak with you, and so trust you ever after." The medieval Torah commentator Sforno says that the people need to see the thick cloud while Moses speaks to God, because this will help them believe in the power of Moses' face-to-face communication with God. You see, no prophet before Moses has ever had this type of informal relationship with God, speaking face-to-face directly to God. Sforno writes, "One of the principal ingredients of Moses' high level of prophecy is that he remains in full control of all of his faculties, including all parts of his body, something that no one had ever done before. Up until this time, all prophetic messages from God had been communicated either in a dream or in a vision involving the prophet losing touch with his surroundings at the time of such communication with God." In other words, Moses' status is so superior to any other prophet that he is able to access and talk directly to God at all moments of his life, even the mundane. The cloud is necessary because Moses' relationship with God is so nonchalant that no one would believe that Moses was communicating with God were it not for the cloud, a perceptible symbol of God's presence. I asked you a few minutes ago to raise your hand if you consider yourself to be a spiritual person, and it's perfect that some of you were like this, a lot of you didn't raise your hand at all. I think that we human beings shy away from thinking of ourselves as spiritual because we are like the people of the Torah. We believe that being spiritual requires having a lofty, distant relationship with God, not believing that spiritual moments can happen in the ways and places that make us feel most comfortable, that feel most natural to who we are. We think that being spiritual requires attending synagogue regularly, having mastery over the prayers, knowing Hebrew. Most people would probably say that it definitely involves believing in God in some way, but I disagree with all of this. I believe that religious experiences like this, they can support a person's spiritual life, yes. Coming to temple and singing with each other is definitely helpful in aiding a person's spirituality. But I also believe that moments of spiritual awakening can happen anytime, anywhere, even when we least expect it. Before I go further, I'm going to answer Alyssa's question. What is spirituality exactly? I've been reading a book called The Awakened Brain, The New Science of Spirituality and Our Quest for an Inspired Life. And last week, I attended a professional learning program where I got to learn from its author, Dr. Lisa Miller. She is a professor of clinical psychology and founder of the Spirituality and Mind-Body Institute at Teachers College of Columbia University. In her book, she writes, "Many of us have had experiences we might describe as spiritual. A moment of deep connection with another human being or with nature, a feeling of awe and transcendence, an experience of startling synchronicity, or a time when a stranger showed up and did something that just changed our lives. A time when you felt held or inspired or buoyed up by something greater than yourself. A higher power, perhaps, but maybe it was nature or the universe, or even the surge of connection at a concert or a sporting event. See how our definition of spirituality has nothing to do with prayer or synagogue or even God? It is true that Moses was the greatest prophet who ever lived, and not all of us have Moses' prophetic power. But what if we were to take a lesson from Moses and Sforno's comment on the thick cloud of God, to remind ourselves that having a sense of spirituality does not always have to look like some grand endeavor that causes us to lose sight of who we are, losing a sense of our faculties or control over our mind and our bodies. Sometimes having a spiritual experience looks something much more informal. An earthly experience that allows us to pause for just a moment and remember that there has to be something greater than ourselves. Moses was able to talk with God in everyday moments. It was the people, not him, who needed the cloud to believe in God's presence. This ability is perhaps what made him Moshe Rabbeinu, our people's prophet and teacher. And I want to say that although Moses did have a relationship with God, this was, of course, one of the defining characteristics of his life, I don't think that being spiritual requires even believing in God. I simply think it means believing that there is something greater and opening ourselves to the possibility of this in even the mundane moments. In The Awakened Brain, Dr. Miller explains that spirituality is one of humanity's greatest tools for staving off mental illness such as depression, anxiety, or even dysthymia, which is a fancy term for that low-grade sense of meaninglessness that comes to everyone at one point or another, simply by the fact that we are human beings in an imperfect world. In a nationally representative sample of teens, she found that adolescents with a strong personal spirituality were 35 to 75% less likely to experience clinical depression. They were 40 to 80% less likely to develop substance dependence or abuse. She writes, "No other mental health intervention, clinical or pharmacological, for adults or adolescents had anything close to these prevention rates." And not only that, but depression and spirituality are two sides of the same coin, vastly different experiences that in fact share some physiology. Her findings suggest that our human brains are actually wired to use spirituality to counter depression. Depression rates are currently at an all-time high. In 2024, the suicide rate in the United States reached its highest peak since 1941. Perhaps the insight from this week's Torah portion is the answer. We can all be like Moses and utilize one of the greatest antidotes to mental illness. And this doesn't even require stretching ourselves too hard. Spirituality, a sense that there is something more powerful than ourselves, is right here. Yes, in this chapel, but right here in our everyday lives. It's in the everyday magic that we're able to experience when we open ourselves to its possibility, by placing ourselves in moments with others, by spending time in nature, really enjoying the week of Tu B'Shvat, by doing things we love that make us feel alive and connected to a greater universe. In Deuteronomy 30, so way ahead of where we are in this week's Torah portion, we're only in Exodus, but in Deuteronomy 30, There's an incredible line that tells us, Lo bashamayim hi. It is not in heaven. Usually, when we use this phrase, it's referring to the Torah. The Torah is lo bashamayim hi, meaning, or lo bashamayim hi, the Torah, meaning that the Torah is accessible to anyone who decides to study it and think about how its wisdom applies to our lives. But today, right now, I'm thinking of the phrase lo bashamayim hi as it relates to spirituality. Spirituality, lo bashamayim hi. It is not in heaven. It is right here. Each of us has the capacity, and in fact, maybe we're even wired to follow in Moses' footsteps and experience it, even in the ordinary, even while we're staying grounded in our personal realities. And with this capacity, we have the power to take charge of our mental health and turn our lives for the better. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
We are going to conclude our service. Now start to conclude with Aleinu, which is found on page 282. And I'll invite you all to please rise.
Aleinu לשבח לדון הכל, לתת גדולה ויוצר בראשית, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוצר הארץ, ומושבי קרוב השמיים ממעל, ושכינת עזבו בגובי מרומים, הוא אלוהינו ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא.
287.
נאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו You may be seated. First of all, thank you for that sermon. I think we need to hear that like 3 or 4 times a year. Although, one thing I would say, there have been many studies that I've never read that said coming to synagogue does allow you to live a lot longer. So. Let's go to page 294, I'm sorry. It is a fearful thing to love what death has touched. A fearful thing to love, hope, dream, to be, and oh, to lose. A thing for fools, this, and a holy thing to love. For your life has lived in me, and your laugh once lifted me, and your word was gift to me. To remember this, it brings a painful joy. 'Tis a human thing, love, a holy thing, to love what death has touched. As we move to Kaddish Yatom, I'd like to ask if there's anyone here who's here after the recent death of a loved one that would like to stand and tell us their name. Is there anyone here in the midst of Shiva or Shloshim, in the first 30 days after the death of a loved one? Is there a yard site occurring on this Shabbat? Please stand and tell us who you heard us say Kaddish for.
Moshe Babarski, my father.
My grandfather, Henry Siegler, and my great-grandfather, Morris.
And is there anyone here who is in the first year here after the death of a loved one who would like to say that name, please do rise and tell us who you're going to say country.
My beloved husband, Roy Young.
Mom?
Oh, no, it's after him.
That's 1 year. Okay. My dad, my father, Ronald Aaron. We also say those whose yard sites occur on this Shabbat: Peter Churchick and Bella Friedman, Gertrude Vivian Friedman, Rose Friedman, Harry or Pat Gordon, or Ida Greenberg Seth. So let's rise together as a congregation. We say Kaddish for those names called as we take them into our hearts, but we also say it for those that have known to say it for them. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah, be'alma divrach cherutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayecho v'yomecho v'chayei b'chol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala v'yizman karib v'imru, Amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah v'barach le'olam v'olmei almaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei v'gudashah b'rechu, le'elam min kol berchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechemata, da'miram v'yalma v'imru, Amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shmai, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru, Amen. Oseh shalom v'imamav, Hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru, Amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us, to all Israel, to the whole world. And we say, Amen. You may be seated. We have a couple announcements. Senator Schusterman, are you ready for tomorrow morning? You're going to have to get up very early to get here. Not really? Okay. We have a couple other things. You want to talk about your class?
This coming Tuesday night, please join us. We are going to be joined by Dr. Sivan Zakai, who is going to speak all about parenting after October 7th and how to raise our children, our grandchildren, if we're teachers or have really any contact with children. This class is for you. She is the author of the book, My Second Favorite Country, How American Jewish Children Think About Israel. And for those of you who may have joined, we've done 2 discussions on the book leading up to this night, and then this coming Tuesday, 7 o'clock, right in here. It's going to be a really wonderful class, really on parenting in this time. So please join us. I want to make sure we have a full room for her as she comes and visits us at 7 o'clock this Tuesday.
For the next 2 weeks, we have very musical services. Next week is Spark. Anyone here sing at Spark? Anyone here sing? These ladies back there. Look, 4 people. I've heard you sing. You should not be raising your hand. I'm just kidding. So next week is Spark, which is with our house band and our junior cantors and our soul singers, our choir. And in 2 weeks, we have a special guest that we just got this week, which is Nefesh Mountain. If you've never heard of Nefesh Mountain, they are a bluegrass group. It's a husband-wife team, and we're going to have the 2 of them alone. We're not going to have their whole band, although we're going to try to convince their drummer, because Michelle went to camp with him in my elementary school. But these guys are amazing, and they have a new album out. I wish I could remember the name, but it has a bus, like a van on the front, on the album cover. And they're a kind of a crossover band. They do a lot of Jewish music, but a lot of their music is just kind of straight bluegrass. I mean, it's just, he's an amazing player. She's an incredible singer. And their stuff's great. Check it out on Spotify, iTunes, all of that. Nefesh Mountain, and that's going to be the 28th.
We have Yom Chesed coming up on March 9th. For those of you who joined us last week, you know what this is. It's sort of our version of Mitzvah Day, but it's our idea of, usually for Purim we send mishloach manot, gifts of food and goodies to our friends and family and those in need, and instead we turn it internally here and do good deeds to send out into the larger world. We actually use our hands and our time and our efforts to do volunteer projects and then send them out into the world. So that's March 9th. It's going to be a fabulous day of volunteering. We're working right now on putting together all the volunteer options, and come for that. That's going to make a difference in our world. Purim is coming. You might not believe it, but it is coming in the middle of March.
Defying tragedy.
We have here's a preview. We have an incredible Purim spiel coming up. If any of you have seen Wicked, you want to come and join for this. It's going to be a lot of fun. Get your costumes ready, get your fun ready, get your whole self ready, because Purim is coming. That is March 14th. And then we're going to have, the night before that, an adult-only Purim party for March 13th, just for adults. So join us for all of that. And we, again, are so excited to be celebrating with Samuel tomorrow. And
just one last thing. I know you don't know this, but that's one of my favorite lines is Zelo b'shamayim. It's not out there for us to feel spiritual or to do the work or to be in community. And I happen to be working with an incredible organization, the Weber Arts Foundation, whose mission is to promote integration against bigotry, against anti-Semitism, against all these terrible things that we are being bombarded with through the arts. So this woman, Beth Lane, has created a documentary. It's happening next Friday through the following Friday, the 21st to the 27th, at the Lemley Encino. And if there's a way to tell a story about survivors of the Holocaust through miracle, through the community aspect of humanity and spirituality that went across religion, across where people are from, this is the movie. I'm going to be going Saturday night and Sunday of next week because there's some incredible speakers that will be speaking with it. So please join me. But these will be back there by the challah, and you can take one and buy a ticket. And please let me know if you have any questions.
thank you. So that last thing I want to say, we're going to do our closing song, and then we're all going to make our way over there where we have a delicious challah. And I'm going to invite to help lead me in Motzi Ilya, who received a Hebrew name today and is a new member of our community, and we're so excited to have him.
He received a very happy Hebrew name, right?
Asher.
Asher.
Asher, exactly, which means
Very happy.
happy and content with our blessings. So you can join me over there when we go over there, and I'm also talking.
Let's end with Oseh Shalom. If you want to stand, put your arm around the next to the person after consent, please do so. Oseh Shalom B'Romav Uyaseh Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael Ve'yimeru Amen. Yaseh Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael Yaseh Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yoshvei Teimah Oseh Shalom B'Romav Uyaseh Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael Ve'yimeru Amen. Shabbat Shalom.